Dusk settled along the canal like a soft cloth drawn slowly over glass. Lena stepped onto the bookstore barge and felt the familiar give of the deck beneath her shoes. She left the gangplank half drawn and turned toward the lamps that hung from low beams inside. One by one she lit the lanterns. Warm light pooled across the shelves and made the spines of the books look deeper and quieter than they had in the afternoon. Outside, the water held the last pale blue of the sky. Inside, everything smelled of paper, beeswax, and the faint clean scent of river air. Moss arrived soon after, paddling close in his small ferry skiff. He climbed aboard with a quiet shuffle of webbed feet and set down a canvas satchel that made almost no sound when it touched the counter. Soft parcels, he had said earlier that day, and soft they were, wrapped in brown paper and tied with thin cotton string that barely creaked when loosened. Lena smiled at him and poured 2 cups of tea from the small stove kettle. Steam rose in lazy curls. Together they opened the satchel and began to sort. There were ordinary novels with worn edges and kind titles. There were slim poetry books no thicker than a hand. There was one guidebook to canal wildflowers with pressed leaves still tucked carefully between pages. Lena set each of these in neat stacks, smoothing corners as she went. Moss handed her the next parcel with careful pause and watched the lantern light move across the paper. Near the bottom of the satchel they found 3 slim volumes bound in plain cloth the color of early mist. Lena untied the string and opened the first. The pages were completely blank. Not yellowed, not marked, not even faintly lined. Just pale paper waiting. She turned a few leaves. Still empty. She opened the second volume and the third. The same quiet emptiness met her. Yet when she held them, each book warmed slightly against her palms, as if it had been resting near a gentle hearth. Moss tilted his head. He touched one cover with a single claw tip and then drew back, as if not wanting to startle whatever patience the pages held. Lena smoothed the cloth covers with the side of her hand. The fabric felt soft and slightly napped, like something that had been well cared for. She set the 3 blank books aside on the counter and returned to the ordinary stock. Those she shelved by height and color, sliding them into place with the soft sound of paper against wood. The barge accepted each book without complaint. Outside, a heron passed low over the water and vanished into the dimming green of the far bank. The lanterns hummed almost too quietly to hear. Lena wiped a thin film of canal dust from the counter's edge and looked again at the 3 slim volumes resting closed beside the teacups. "I wonder why empty books would arrive at all," she said, her voice low so it would not press against the quiet. Moss made a soft answering sound in his throat, neither yes nor no, only company. They sat then on the low stools behind the counter. Lena cupped her tea. Moss held his cup between both paws and blew gently across the surface. The blank volumes lay between them, closed and still, their cloth covers catching a little of the lantern gold. The barge rocked gently. Somewhere below, the soft lap of canal water against the barge hull kept a slow and even time, like breathing shared between the boat and the night. Lena watched the steam thin and disappear. She did not open the blank books again. For now it was enough that they were warm, that they had come with the soft parcels, and that the evening had room enough to hold the small unanswered question without hurrying it along. Moss blinked slowly, content. The lantern light held steady. The canal kept its quiet rhythm against the hull, and the barge settled deeper into the dusk as if preparing, in its wooden way, for whatever the pages might one day decide to say. Morning found the barge still moored in the same quiet bend. Lena woke to the pale grey of early light filtering through the cabin windows and the low smell of last night's tea leaves in the pot. The 3 blank volumes waited on the counter where she and Moss had left them. She chose the thinnest one, settled into the reading chair by the small round table, and opened it carefully across her lap. The pages remained the color of cool milk. She turned them one by one, pausing at each, reading the emptiness as if a story might simply need more time. Nothing rose. The paper felt smooth and faintly warm, but the lines stayed unwritten. Outside the window the canal lay still and silver. She closed the book, set it aside, and went to light the small stove for breakfast. After they had eaten, Moss helped her climb the narrow ladder to the roof. Lena wrapped a soft wool scarf around her shoulders against the thin morning air and sat with her back to the low rail. She opened the blank book again and held it open to the sky. A few slow clouds drifted past. A duck left a quiet wake farther down the water. Still the pages offered only their pale, unbroken surfaces. She read them with her eyes for a long while, waiting without urgency, then folded the scarf more snugly and climbed back down. By the stove the air was warmer. Lena sat on the low stool and tried once more, the book open across her knees while the kettle hummed softly. Moss watched from the doorway, his paws folded. She spoke a few ordinary sentences aloud to the empty paper, describing the curve of the canal and the way the lanterns had looked the evening before. The words left her mouth and vanished into the quiet. The pages did not answer. Lena smoothed the cloth cover with her thumb and looked up at Moss. "Perhaps they want a different place," he said, voice soft as always. "There is the mooring near the old green bridge. The water moves a little differently there. We could take the barge that far." Lena nodded. Together they loosened the lines and eased the barge along the canal. The journey was slow and gentle. Willows brushed the roof now and then. A pair of swans drifted aside to let them pass. When they reached the green bridge, Moss guided them into the familiar quiet pocket of water beneath its iron span. The bridge painted a soft shade of moss and faded paint across the light. They made fast to the worn bollards and let the barge settle. Lena carried the blank book out onto the small forward deck. She sat with her legs crossed and the volume open. Moss settled beside her, listening. Beneath them the soft lap of canal water against the barge hull kept its steady, patient rhythm. Lena began to read aloud again, not from any writing, but simply speaking what she noticed. The cool air under the bridge, the faint green reflection on the water, the way the light dimmed and then brightened as clouds moved. Halfway through a sentence about the shadow of the railing, a thin line of ink appeared near the top of the page. It formed slowly, as if drawn by a careful hand that was in no hurry. Lena paused. Moss leaned closer. The ink continued, shaping words that described a hidden alcove just beyond the bridge's far pillar, a place where the stone curved inward and the water grew stiller. A little farther down the page, more ink arrived, noting a sleeping heron tucked among the reeds, one leg drawn up, feathers the color of river mist. Lena kept reading what the book now offered, her voice quiet and even. The sentences did not speak of distant kingdoms or invented shores. They spoke of this canal. They mapped the bends she had passed 100 times without truly seeing them. They named the soft undercut of the bank where minnows rested in summer heat. They marked the place where an old willow's roots made a natural seat above the water. Each new line settled onto the page with the same unhurried care, turning the blank volume into a careful map of the water itself and the quiet corners that edged it. When the first set of map lines finished, the ink simply stopped. The rest of the page remained pale and waiting, calm as the surface under the bridge. Lena rested her hand lightly on the open paper. Moss blinked, content to sit with what had arrived. Above them, the green bridge held the morning light in its iron lace. The barge rocked once, gently, and then grew still again, holding the open book and the two of them in the slow, listening hush of the canal. After a little while, the pale paper stirred again beneath Lena's hand. A thin line of ink found its way down the margin, soft as a breath. It drew a stone wall she had floated past for years without naming. Along that wall it sketched rungs of living green, one above the next, a ladder of moss rising from the waterline toward a quiet ledge. Lena tilted the book so Moss could see. He leaned close, whiskers nearly brushing the page, and made a small sound of agreement. The drawing showed the wall just beyond the far shadow of the green bridge, where the canal bent and the light lay thinner. They rose without hurry. Moss took the short pole and set it gently against the canal bed. Lena kept the open book steady in the crook of her arm. The barge eased forward a little way, hull whispering along the still water, until the stone wall came into clear view. There it was. Damp green rungs clung to the old stones, each one soft and uneven, smelling faintly of wet earth and cool shade. Water beaded on the lower moss where the canal lapped close. Lena had looked this way 100 times and never truly seen the ladder waiting. Moss held the barge steady with one paw on the pole. Lena reached out and touched the lowest rung. It gave a little under her fingers, cool and springy, like a cushion left out in the dew. She touched the next rung up, and the one after that, marking their places in her mind the way she marked tears in paper. The soft lap of canal water against the barge hull kept time while she looked. It was a quiet counting, easy to rest inside. Back at the open book, a tiny tear had opened at the margin, no longer than a seed. Lena set the volume on the low rail and took her small paste pot from the pocket of her apron. She smoothed a breath of soft paste along the edge, pressed the paper flat with the side of her thumb, and waited until it held. The mend was nearly invisible, a kindness the book seemed to accept. When she turned the page a fraction, new lines began to arrive. They spoke of night passengers who rode the canal when the lanterns were low. They spoke of quiet rails along the towpath, rails worn smooth by slow wheels and softer feet. Each sentence settled kindly, never crowding the next. Moss pointed with one dark paw toward a faint groove in the bank, half hidden by reeds. Lena nodded and noted it in the margin beside the moss ladder, a small careful mark. She wrote the feel of the damp green rungs, the cool of the stone, the way the ladder seemed meant for climbing without haste. More ink followed, describing how the night passengers sometimes paused to listen at certain bends. The words did not rush. They left room between them for the water's own voice. Lena read each line aloud in a low tone, and Moss repeated the softer phrases under his breath, as if learning a gentle route by heart. They stayed a little longer beside the wall. Lena brushed a fallen leaf from a middle rung and set it floating free. Moss watched it drift, then looked back at the page where the description of the ladder now rested complete, edged by her mend and her small notes. When the newest sentence began to slow, they poled the short way home to their familiar mooring under the bridge. The barge settled against its ropes. Lena closed nothing. She only carried the open book to the rail and laid it there so the air could move across the paper. The moss ladder was marked clearly in the margin now, green in her memory and quiet on the page. Below it one unfinished sentence cooled, the ink darkening at its last letter and then simply waiting, pale space beyond like open water. Moss settled beside her. Together they watched the sentence rest, and the canal rest with it, holding whatever would come next in its own good time. The unfinished sentence lay open on the rail a long while. Lena kept one palm near the paper without touching the pale stretch beyond the last letter. Moss breathed slow beside her, whiskers still, as if the quiet itself were a kind of reading. Lantern light pooled on the deck boards and made small gold rings that did not hurry. After a time the ink stirred again. It did not rush. It simply continued, calm and even, turning its attention from the canal wall to the barge that held them. The words described the curve of the hull, the soft coil of rope at the cleat, the way the cabin door smelled faintly of paper and old tea. Lena read each line aloud in a voice no louder than the night air. Moss nodded once when his own name appeared, written as carefully as the rest. Then the page grew more particular. It said that a sentence cannot finish without a missing listening place. It said the place was where the water changes key. Lena paused with her finger just above the words. Moss tilted his head. The soft lap of canal water against the barge hull filled the small silence between them, steady and known, yet the new phrase felt like something just out of reach of that familiar sound. They stood and listened right where they were. The mooring under the green bridge offered its usual hush, a distant drip from stone, the creak of a rope settling, the low brush of a moth against a lantern glass. Nothing in the water shifted its pitch. The sentence on the page stayed broken, the ink dark at its last letter and then empty, patient as before. Moss suggested they try the other posts they knew. Lena wrapped the open book in a fold of her scarf so the air could still reach it, and they pulled a short way along the bank. At the willow mooring they stopped and cupped their ears toward the canal. The water here sounded the same gentle grey. At the stone steps near the old landing they listened again. A leaf turned slowly in an eddy. The surface gave no new note. Back near the herb pots by their own gangplank they tried once more, standing still until their shoulders eased and the evening cooled their faces. The line on the page did not complete itself. Lena carried the book inside and set it on the cabin table where the lantern threw a round soft light. She filled the kettle and set it on the little stove. While the water heated she smoothed a corner of the open page with the side of her thumb, careful not to smudge the waiting space. Moss brought 2 wool scarves from the peg by the door. He draped one around Lena's shoulders and settled the other across his own damp fur. The kettle began to sing in a low continuous thread. Steam rose and softened the air with the clean smell of warm water. They sat close and shared the steam, holding their cups so the heat could reach their paws and fingers. Lena read the unfinished sentence once more, then closed her eyes and listened past the cabin walls to the canal beyond. Still the same quiet rhythm. Moss rested his cup and said, soft as the steam itself, that some places only speak when the light is the right kind of low. Lena agreed. They would search slowly along the canal at the first light of lantern dusk, when the day had thinned and the water held its deeper colors. There would be time. The book had never asked them to hurry. Outside, a night bird passed without calling. Inside, the stove ticked as it cooled a degree. Lena mended nothing more that hour. She only checked the tiny paste at the book's earlier tear and found it holding firm and smooth. Moss folded the empty parcel cloth from the morning and set it neat on the shelf. Their small tasks kept the cabin kind. When the cups were empty, Lena carried the open book back to the rail. She laid it on the smooth wood where the night air could move across the paper again. The mid-sentence pause held there like a held breath of ink, neither fading nor pressing forward. Moss settled on the deck beside the rail. Together they watched the pale space beyond the last letter, and the canal that waited with it, ready for the listening place whenever the quieter light returned. When the quieter light returned, Lena rose without hurry and took the pole from its peg. Moss untied the soft rope and coiled it against the cleat. The barge eased from the familiar bank and slipped into the middle of the canal, where the water lay still and the lanterns threw only a gentle gold. They moved slowly. Moss dipped the pole and drew it back in long, unhurried strokes. Lena kept the open book on a folded cloth near the rail so the pale space beyond the unfinished sentence could feel the air. A soft corner of one page had lifted in the night damp. She paused the journey long enough to smooth it with a fingertip of paste, then pressed the mend flat until it held as quiet as the rest. Farther on they stopped again. Moss poured tea from the thermos into 2 small cups. The steam rose and smelled faintly of leaves and warm ceramic. They drank while the barge drifted, listening at each quiet corner they knew, the willow's shade, the stone steps, the place where ducks sometimes slept. The ink stayed as it was. The sentence waited. The canal narrowed into a long bend Lena had passed many times without truly noticing. Here the banks drew closer, and the trees leaned in so that the lantern light became softer still. Moss stilled the pole. The barge settled against a low wooden post worn smooth by years of quiet moorings. Lena listened. At first she heard only the ordinary hush. Then the soft lap of canal water against the barge hull changed its tone, lower and rounder, as though the water had found a deeper note to rest inside. The sound was not louder. It was simply fuller, like a breath that had found the right place to finish. She lifted the book. Moss leaned near so the pages caught the same dim gold. The pale space beyond the last letter began to fill, letter by careful letter, in the same calm ink as before. The broken line completed itself without rush. The sentence spoke of a listening place where the canal's voice changed key and could be heard whole. It spoke of memory that lived in water and wood and waited for someone willing to stay. When the line was done, more lines followed, gentle and sure. They told how the blank volumes had never been empty. Each one had held the canal's own quiet memory, unfinished until a reader remained long enough for the water to finish speaking. Lena understood then why the pages had stayed pale in the cabin and on the roof and by the stove. Only near the green bridge had the first words stirred, and only here, where the water changed its tone against the hull, could the rest arrive. The books had needed patience the way the canal needed stillness, time enough for what was already present to become visible. Moss rested a paw on the open margin. The ink settled and darkened just enough to feel complete. Lena turned the last few leaves and found no more blanks. Every page carried the soft map of alcoves and moss ladders and night rails, and now the listening bend as well. The whole book lay warm between their hands, as if the canal's memory had left a little of its own heat inside the paper. They did not speak for a while. Distant oar dips from some far boat touched the air and then faded into stillness. The lanterns burned low and steady. Lena closed the covers with care and set the finished volume on the cloth between them, where it rested whole and quiet, the search gently done. Lena lifted the finished volume from the cloth and held it a moment longer in both hands. The covers had taken on the mild warmth of the barge air and the canal's own slow heat. She rose without hurry and crossed the short cabin floor, her socks soft on the worn boards. Moss followed a pace behind, paws quiet, carrying nothing but the patience of the evening. Near the forward shelves she cleared a narrow space at eye height for a night passenger who might climb aboard later. The wood smelled faintly of old paper and lamp oil. She set the book upright between two gentle novels about river weather and ferry routes, then smoothed the spine with her palm until it sat true. From the mending tray she took a slip of pale card and a stub of soft pencil. In small, even letters she wrote that the book liked to be read without hurry, and that its pages preferred the company of someone willing to listen as much as look. She tucked the note just inside the front cover so it would greet the next hands without fuss. Moss watched the pencil move and gave a low, approving hum. Lena checked the other two blank volumes still waiting on the lower shelf. Their covers felt cooler now, resting, as if they too understood that their turn would come when another patient evening arrived. She left them undisturbed and closed the little wooden gate that kept the night stock safe from sudden drafts. Together they turned down the lanterns one by one. The first wick lowered until its light became a soft gold pool on the table. The second dimmed above the stove, leaving only a gentle circle on the kettle's side. The last lantern near the hatch they left at a bare glow, enough to mark the way for any quiet visitor and no more. Shadows lengthened across the spines and folded themselves into the corners like settled cats. Lena gathered the wool scarf that had kept her shoulders warm under the green bridge. She folded it once, then again, and coiled it into a loose nest on the bench. Moss helped with a careful paw, tucking the frayed end so it would not slip. The scarf smelled of canal dusk and the faint sweetness of the paste she had used earlier on the book's margin. They stood a little while in the half-light and listened. Somewhere inside the shelves a page settled with the smallest sigh, paper finding its final place after the day's turning. Outside, the soft lap of canal water against the barge hull answered in the same unhurried rhythm it had kept all evening. The two sounds braided together until they felt like one long breath shared between wood and water. Moss poured the last of the kettle into two small cups. The tea had cooled to a mild warmth that asked nothing more than slow sips. They drank standing near the open hatch, watching the lantern reflection wobble gently on the black surface of the canal. A night heron called once far off and then fell silent again. No other boats passed. The green bridge stood dark and calm upstream, its underside holding the quiet they had already read. Lena rinsed the cups and set them upside down on the cloth to dry. She checked the mooring lines with her fingertips. They held firm and easy. Moss banked the stove so only a whisper of heat remained. Every small task finished itself without urgency, as if the barge itself preferred the slower pace of night. They returned to the cushioned bench where the cloth still lay. Lena sat first and drew her knees up. Moss curled beside her, warm and solid, his whiskers brushing the edge of her sleeve. The finished book rested on its shelf now, ready for whatever night passenger might need a map of listening places. The open question of the blank pages had settled into a quiet answer. The canal had simply been waiting for someone to stay long enough to hear it finish speaking. Lena let her head rest against the bulkhead. The wood felt smooth and familiar under her temple. Moss's breathing slowed to match the gentle rock of the hull. Paper along the shelves made one last soft shift, then grew still. Outside, the water continued its patient conversation with the barge, a sound so steady it seemed to cradle the whole cabin. Nothing remained unanswered. The parcels of the day had been sorted, the tiers mended, the maps completed, the note left for whoever came next. Lantern light dwindled to the thinnest gold thread. The air smelled of cooling tea leaves and damp night air drifting through the hatch. Lena's eyes grew heavy. Moss's paw rested lightly near her hand. The barge swayed in the smallest of arcs, enough to rock them both toward sleep, enough to remind them they were held by water that knew their names in its own quiet way. The shop drifted into the long hush of canal night, shelves steady, books at rest, the listening place still singing its soft key against the hull. Eyes closed to the soft lap of canal water against the barge hull as the shop drifts into quiet night. And so the barge held them both in stillness until morning light returned as gently as it had left.